Fire Emblem Three Houses has one of the strongest casts in the series. No matter which route you choose, the students you meet have an incredible amount of effort put into them. They come from varied backgrounds, hold distinct beliefs, and develop in ways that reflect the world around them. While most players would naturally look to dialogue and story moments to understand these characters, how they look is just as important. Beyond just making them look nice, character design can also have the purpose of communicating information. It's the silent half of building a character. And this is something that Three Houses excels at. The game uses shape language, color theory, cultural motifs, and even tiny ornamental choices to express who these characters are and what place they occupy in Foden's political and ideological landscape. In this video, I'm going to break down many of those designs, focusing mainly on the war phase outfits. I find that the Academy phase designs are a lot more uniform because they're, well, in uniforms, and generally anything that can be gleaned from them can also be seen in the war phase. And less time spent thinking about free time skip Lorenz, the better. They do have small details to make them more reflective of each character, which is a really nice touch, but you probably don't need me to tell you that Mercedes' shawl is evocative of church wear, or that Leone wears archery gloves because she's an archer, or that Raphael wears work boots instead of the dress shoes everyone else has because of his background as a merchant. And of course, before we dive in, I must ask that you like, comment, and subscribe. Every little bit helps, and I really appreciate it. Now, let's talk about how Three Houses uses character design not just to present characters, but to tell their stories. One of the most obvious yet most effective stylistic choices in Three Houses is how strongly each nation is tied to a single color. The Adressian Empire is red, the Holy Kingdom of Fargus is blue, and the Lesser Alliance is yellow. While this makes for good branding, it also has the potential for storytelling shorthand. When characters align with, reject, or complicate their national color, it becomes a visual clue for where their loyalties and values lie. And nowhere is this clearer than in the Black Eagles. Why are they called the Black Eagles if the Empire is red? Anyway, the Adressian Empire's thematic color is red, in this case representing ambition, fire, and revolution. Of all the three houses, the Black Eagles embrace their national color the most literally, but within that shared palette, each design reflects its character's identity. No character embodies their national identity more than Edelgard. Her dress is ablaze with crimson, visually overwhelming almost every other color on her. The limited palette has the effect of making her look imposing, which is fitting for an emperor. The goat horn clasp that holds her crown is a physical manifestation of the fact that if she wants to achieve her goals, she has to become the devil in the eyes of the church. Edelgard has accepted the role of the villain in the church's story. An easily missed detail is the heart-shaped pattern on her back, usually covered by her cape. I think there's a bit of a through line here with her academy design. In part 1, the flash of red hidden beneath her school uniform symbolized the revolutionary ambition she had simmering under the surface. In part 2, the heart hidden under regalia suggests the opposite, the vulnerable, sentimental Edelgard buried under the armor of a warlord. It's an intimate and emotional detail in an otherwise intimidating design. I believe this design works as a visual metaphor for what is essentially the thesis of Edelgard's character. To achieve change, Edelgard must become something the world fears, but beneath it a human heart still beats. Hubert wears almost entirely black, with only the underside of his cape being lined in red. He looks like the textbook definition of the Garneth archetype, a black-clad mage who can always be found sulking around a red emperor. If Edelgard is Arvis, Hubert is Manfroy. Add on to this his yellow eyes, which, aside from just being creepy, may allude to the Morphs, characters who also fit this archetype. Three Houses uses this on purpose to mislead you. The whole point of this archetype is that it's manipulating someone in power, except Hubert isn't manipulating Edelgard. His design makes you expect treachery, but instead he is fiercely loyal to her. Manfroy worked behind Arvis's back in service of his own goals, while Hubert only goes behind Edelgard when he feels he has to do something that would make her look bad. The same tropes are visually present, but inverted. Everything about Hubert looks like a traitor, except he's not. Little side note, I desperately wish that each member of the Black Eagles had been based on past villains. I get there aren't as many villain archetypes as there are for player characters, but it would have been such a cool way to have the Black Eagles mirror the Blue Lions. Ferdinand's conflict with Edelgard is subtly expressed through color. He wears red, showing devotion to the Empire, but the dark blue trim on his uniform separates him from Edelgard's near monochrome idealism. Ferdinand does believe in Adressia, but he doesn't necessarily see eye to eye with what Edelgard wants for it. His symmetrical, polished armor reflects his devotion to propriety and excellence. Ferdinand looks like someone who desperately wants to be a model noble, and that is indeed who he is. Dorothea is a pretty cynical person. She has a pretty intense dislike for the nobility and has no qualms using her charm as a weapon. Her red clothing communicates her complete alignment with Edelgard's cause. Despite her distrust of the upper class, she does believe in Edelgard's revolution. While looking appropriately beautiful for a songstress and performer, it still shows her political conviction. Gaspar's bright blue hair initially seems like it breaks the color coding, but his clothing brings him back in line, with his outfit containing plenty of red accents. I think the blue hair is meant to reflect his energetic and brash personality. Basically, it's a subtle and masterful nod towards him having the temperament of Sonic the Hedgehog. Linhardt is the visual outlier of the house. His muted green palette stands apart from the Empire's red, intentionally signaling his lack of ideological investment. His darker shades keep him from clashing too hard with the group, but his colors still convey a disconnect. The purple bag is really the only thing strongly connecting him to the group's palette, reinforcing his drifting and detached nature. A similar idea can be applied to Bernadetta. Her dark purple palette places her near the house visually, but not at its center. She belongs to the Empire, but isn't nearly as passionate as many of her peers. This could maybe also work as a reference to her house's status in Adrestia, since the Varleys hardly matter. Petra's design immediately communicates that she's foreign. Her clothing uses patterns and silhouettes found nowhere else in the cast, creating instant cultural distinction. The magenta in her outfit ties her slightly to the Adressian palette, but the absence of red shows she still has her own prerogatives. She may fight for the Empire, but Bridget is still what matters to her most. The Kingdom is tied to the color blue, which may represent stability in contrast to the Empire's more revolutionary ideals. Part of what makes this house compelling is how many of its members visually challenge the typical ideals of the Kingdom. Of the house leaders, Dimitri features his thematic color the least. Only his cape and a few small accents on his armor carry the color of the Kingdom. His cape is the most blue present in his design, and even that is covered by the black and white fur he wears. I think this conveys that Dimitri's personal struggles have overtaken his feelings of responsibility for his country. He's a man racked with grief and rage. His disheveled and unkempt appearance places further distance between him and his station. Dimitri looks nothing how a prince of a holy kingdom ought to look. And yet, a blue cross remains over his heart, slashed across his torso. This is the kingdom scarred into him, a symbol of duty and the suffering that comes with it. Despite how antagonistic Felix is towards the kingdom, he wears more blue than almost anyone. Even though Felix vehemently rejects the ideals of knighthood that the kingdom holds dear, he still cares for his country. I think it's cool that, despite how much blue he's wearing, he's still not dressed in traditional knight garb. The game is showing that even if he does care for Fargus, he's not disregarding his issues with it. Dedue's outfit, similarly to Petra's, may reflect Duscan culture. Specifically, this rectangle pattern can be seen in both his house's and Hope's designs, which isn't present on any other character. I'm not quite as confident with this one as I was with Petra, since Dedue's armor still seems very typical for the kingdom. Though, mixing Duscan and Farragon aesthetics would be a pretty cool choice for Dedue. I've already discussed this at length in my hit video and analysis of Fire Emblem's most iconic archetype, but Sylvain and Ingrid are meant to be the Cain and Abel. In fact, all the characters in this house call back to a classic trope or two in one way or another, but it's most evident here. While Sylvain being Cain would seemingly make him seem out of place in a group that's mostly blue, the game alleviates this. Him having a more orange hair rather than the red typical of the Cain archetype helps him fit in a bit better, since there are a few other characters that have orange in their designs as well, and his outfit does still feature blue. It is conceivable that Sylvain having warmer colors in his design could hint at his complicated relationship with the kingdom's social structures and how they've impacted his family, but I think it's more likely that it's just a callback. As for Ingrid, her outfit being mostly a pale shade of green along with teal helps her fit in with her blue companions. While with Sylvain, I thought the warmer elements of his design were unrelated to his view of the kingdom, I'm not sure that the same is true for Annette. It's well known that there was a cut scenario where she and Felix would betray you and Azramoon, and it's possible that this color scheme could have hinted towards her dislike for the kingdom. Hell, you could even argue that Felix's orange eyes were alluding to the same. Despite having no blue in her design other than her eyes, Mercedes fits right in. The differing shades of brown don't clash too hard with everyone else, and obviously a character dressed like a nun is going to fit right in with the Holy Kingdom. I think the choice to make her outfit mostly pale brown could have been meant to match Yuritsa, who similarly wears a lot of brown. The difference is that Yuritsa wears armor, referencing his love for combat, and also wears red, referencing his allegiance with Edelgard. I really like Ash. He gives Felix a run for his money in terms of being the most blue in this cast, showing his deep love for the kingdom. He wears armor on his shoulders and chest, showing his admiration for knighthood, but doesn't quite have the super traditional armor of someone like Sylvain or Dedue. I think this is meant to reference his unconventional upbringing and the fact that he was only adopted into nobility. The Alliance's thematic color is yellow, but unlike the Empire and Kingdom, its identity is a lot looser. It's possible that this represents that the Alliance is a federation of nobles who barely agree on anything, but it could also be a consequence of the designers putting less thought into the Alliance than they did for the Kingdom or Empire, which certainly wouldn't be off-brand for this game. Claude's outfit looks refined and noble, which may have been intended to be subverted by him being a schemer. Granted, this doesn't really come to fruition, but that's another topic. His outfit seems to be vaguely inspired by Almyra, which hints towards his backstory. Concept art shows his outfits were a lot more overtly Almyran, which makes me wonder if early on they intended for him to be more open about his heritage. I also think the black parts of his outfit may have been meant to represent that he keeps his past in the dark for most people. I think Lorenz is really amazing, honestly one of my favorite designs in the series. Firstly, him wearing so much purple is meant to contrast directly with Claude wearing yellow. Lorenz is the rival of the Golden Deer, so it makes sense for him to contrast Claude. Another interesting thing in regards to this is that the other rival characters still fit in with the primary color, even if they challenge the protagonist. Maybe this was meant to show that Lorenz's vision for the Alliance differs greatly from Claude's, while the same isn't true, at least to the same extent, for Felix and Ferdinand. Further, purple is a color often associated with royalty. Even among other nobles, Lorenz is particularly pompous, so this fits. There's also the rose pinned to his chest. On top of looking nice with the purple, the rose represents his flirtatious personality. Having a bit of red in his design also references his inclination towards siding with the Empire. His Part 2 design is really excellent. I feel like every detail has multiple meanings to it. Lysithia's design doesn't fit into the thematic color, but also isn't quite as rife with meaning as Lorenz. She is generally abrasive, so maybe her being purple references that, but it could also just be that they thought it looked nice with the pink eyes. This is very much a stretch, but maybe the white is meant to reference Catherine while the purple references Lorenz. She shares both of their crests, so I guess it's not impossible. Continuing with that train of thought, maybe the dark gold highlights are meant to evoke the color of the relic weapons, referencing Lysithia's past trauma regarding crests. Marianne looks like she belongs in the Blue Lions. Her blue dress and nun-like appearance immediately tie her to the church, and by extension, the kingdom. This mainly reflects her piety, but could also be connected to the Alliance's history. The Leicester region used to be part of the kingdom until splitting off, so maybe Marianne wearing all blue is a reference to that past. Also, continuing that line of thought I brought up with Lysithia, the dark gold accents on Marianne's dress may represent her complicated past with the crests. I find Hilda frustrating. I think she was probably made pink and red because it's just a nice color palette that fits in with her middle name being Valentine, though it could also reference that she doesn't really care about being in the nobility. To be fair, her not caring about going along with what would be expected of her and just doing whatever she wants is very in character for Hilda. There are 3 commoners among the Golden Deer, and they have a stronger visual cohesion with Leicester's themes than any of the nobles. Leonie's color scheme is meant to evoke Geralt's. Raphael's outfit represents his past as a merchant, and Ignat's represents his love for the arts. These 3 are the only characters aside from Claude that really fit into the Alliance's thematic color. I think the 3 commoners fitting with the theme the best may have been intended to show how Leicester is a land that represents the people better than either Fargus or Adrestia. Or maybe the nobility being all over the place while the commoners are unified is meant to represent the state of the Alliance. The Knights of Seiros primarily wear white, but Shamir disrupts the visual uniformity entirely. Her black and green outfit immediately marks her as an outsider, which makes sense for a foreign mercenary. Cyril's outfit notably lacks Almiran influences, highlighting how his upbringing under Rhea severed him from his cultural roots. I do wish he had white armor so he would fit in with the Knights of Seiros. While I think it's easy to understand why a church would be associated with white and gold, I think that the dark blue found in Cetus, Rhea's, and Flame's designs may be meant to represent that their past is shrouded in mystery, much like Claude's. Fire Emblem 3 Houses shows how powerful character design can be. It's not just about making characters look cool, it's about using them as storytelling tools. The shared palettes help the cast feel unified on every level. Within these palettes, each character's design deepens their story, sometimes aligning with their nation, sometimes resisting it, sometimes reflecting the tension between who they are and who the world demands they be. Character design is one of the quietest forms of storytelling, but 3 Houses shows how impactful it can be.